Hello everybody, I am Samuel 15 the Dragon Tamer here today, and welcome to PAVA Alternative Talk, where each and every other week or so we take a look at something that's going on in the anime world, whether it be a new alternative album or one that's been out for a while, or we talk about a band or something along those lines, and I give my thoughts and opinions about something like that. And this week we are doing an album review of Imagine Dragons, their newest album, Smoke and Mirrors, that was just released this past Tuesday. For those who are new to my channel, you won't be seeing any clips or hearing any music of it. I apologize, and you'll just be hearing my rambling voice. So if you're not interested in that, then I kindly ask for you to leave. For those who are into that, then please stay. And I also want to say that this picture you see is their the cover for their album. So without further ado, let's get right into it. There was a lot of hype going into this album, not just for me, but just in general, because Imagine Dragons just pretty much came out of nowhere with their first album. Like, their first album hit the stores in with like weeks. With like a few days, like one of their songs was on the radio and got more and more played as the days went on. I also want to say that for like a day or two, I believe it was on on the alternative stations before everyone realized, oh my god, Imagine Dragons are really good, and put them on other stations. So like really fast. Hell, they pretty much became successful almost overnight, to be perfectly honest. When the EP came out, no one really paid attention to that for some reason, even though it had some of the same songs with its time. I actually bought the EP before the album even came out, and I pre-ordered it. And when I pre-ordered, not too many people even heard of Imagine Dragons at that point until like a few days after it came out. That's when it started becoming really big. Because I believe that's right around the time where with several alternative stations started showing putting Imagine Dragons on the stations with the song It's Time. Since then, you pretty much know the other songs that became big as well. Radioactive and Demons. Those are the three big songs off that album. And since then, they've put up two singles, actually three singles. One for the Transformers movie, one for, and just they put out like three different songs, Monster and I believe Wars, something like that. And all those had a more of a darker feel to it. Darker than anything we have experienced from Imagine Dragons prior. They really don't have too many dark stuff, it's more of an upbeat tone to it. And whatnot. And this kind of continues that too, with an upbeat tone for the most part. There are several songs that on this album that are slightly darker, but for the most part it's very upbeat, very positive. It's a lot like the last album. It sounds very similar, but also at the same way different. It has a different feel, but even though it sounds similar, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I apologize if it does not. So there was a lot of hype going into this album, and do I think this album lived up to the hype? You can never. Well, here's my opinion. You can never really live up to the hype. Very rarely can anyone live up to the hype. Like, hype is basically where people get excited for something. The only time you can surpass a hype, for the most part, is like there's no hype at all. The easiest way to surpass hype is if there's no hype in the first place. But I feel like they did their best, and they did very much so meet the expectations. They certainly met my expectations, and for those who have been fans of Imagine Dragons, you're definitely not going to be disappointed at all with this album, unless you're expecting them to do better than the first album. Now, that's another thing. Is this album better than the previous album? I actually don't think so. Yes and no. I don't know, actually. I've listened to this album a lot last several days, this past week, and I still have yet to decide whether or not I like this album more or not. And I think, I actually like this album more as a whole than the other album. The other album, I like several singles more than the album. The album as a whole, this album, Smoke and Mirrors, is better than, to me as a whole, than the last one. I forgot what was it called. Let me look real quick. I think the last album was like Dream or something like that, or I forgot. Yeah, I can't find. Yeah, can't remember. But the last album was fairly good as well. It was really good. I'd actually probably give it like a 9.6 out of 10. But several singles on that list, on that album, were better in my opinion. I like Demons a lot. I really did like It's Time. I really like those songs. And I really don't have any songs on this album that I really like a lot. There's a few songs I really do like Hopeless Opus or Opus or something like that. And It Comes Back to You, but I doubt either of them will get too much radio play. I'm So Sorry I actually did like a lot too. So do I think this album surpasses it? I think that there's better singles, there's certain songs that are better on the last album than this album, but I think as a whole this album is better. But that's just my personal opinion. There's several songs that are on this album that have gotten I've already gotten several radio play going into this. I Bet My Life. Let's see. I Bet My Life got a lot of radio play already. Shots is also getting a lot of very popular too. Those two songs alone are getting a lot of play. But I feel like there's other songs on this album that will get more play, radio play as well as time goes on. And that's Dream, It Comes Back to You, maybe Gold or Smoke and Mirrors. I don't know, honestly, because there's just so many good songs on this album to me. Like I said before, to me as a whole, this album is in fact better. But there's certain songs on the last one that I feel like still will continue to be better. But I think there will be definitely several songs that will be show a lot of radio play, like Shots, I'm So Sorry, and I Bet My Life for sure will be on the radio, especially alternate stations. Probably maybe even a fourth song that gets some some alternative play, maybe even mainstream, because we've seen in the past, for the most part, a really good, for the most part, if you're lucky, you get one or two songs from an album that are you'll get radio play. But sometimes it'll be 3, and that's for the most part the cap or the most. But occasionally, every now and again, you get an album that does 4, maybe 5 songs to get on the radio. But that is rare and far between. And that's just basically because there's a fairly large gap between albums or new songs, or because in this case the album is just that good. There's so many good stuff on this album, and I believe there's a lot of good stuff on this album. But like I said, I don't feel like there's a certain individual song that there's several songs that are on par with the 3 big songs from the last album, but I don't think there's anyone that surpasses them. I do like the whole entire sound of it. I really do like this album a lot, and it keeps up with the same sound, and very much so does, but it adds something new to it as well, which is something I always like to see out of a new album. And I'm not at all disappointed. I'm actually a little bit impressed by this album in general. I was not disappointed, and I do not at all regret buying this album from iTunes. I pre-ordered it, and I do not at all regret buying it. I'm actually very happy that I did so, and I'm very happy to say that I have this album in my library. Do I recommend this album? I definitely recommend this album if you're Imagine Dragons fans. If you are an Imagine Dragons fan, buy it. If you're an alternative fan, I would suggest buying it, but it depends on what kind of alternative fan you are. If you're more of a fan who gets sick easily by mainstream stuff, I don't think Imagine Dragons is a band for you, personally, to be honest. If you're an alternative fan like me, who goes ooh, alternative, I'll buy pretty much anything from that genre, then I definitely recommend getting this album because it's a really good album. Um, if you're even if you're like a mainstream like person who doesn't like to, who doesn't really have heard of too many lesser known bands, I actually would recommend it as well. I think this is a really good album. And as such, I'm going to give this album a 9.6, 9.6 at, 9.6, or should I say 9.7? I think I should just say 9.7 out of 10. Yeah, I'm giving that high of a record of no, yeah, 9.6, I'm just going to say that. Yeah, 9.6 out of 10. I feel like there's not a single really song that is on par with any of the. There's several songs I believe that are on par, but I don't think there's any of them that quote stand out because the album is just so good. It's so condensed. It's so well. And also the album's name is Smoke and Mirrors, and there's a song on this album called Smoke and Mirrors. That's something I don't like, and I said before. I like originality if I like to see a theme for an album, and I don't really see too much of a theme here. I could just be me, but but that's just my personal opinion. I think in my personal opinion, there's no real theme here. So I'm deducting points basically lack of real theme for me, and just I don't feel like they have any songs that surpass their last songs or any songs they have made prior. But this is a very good album. As a whole, this album is fantastic, and I very highly recommend this to anyone. I suggest you do try out the Imagine Dragons. But that's just my personal opinion. You're free to disagree and everything. So I hope you guys liked today's video. Please let other people know. Please like, subscribe, and all that silly stuff. And I'll see you guys next time.